This is a content warning. This episode contains graphic descriptions of violence, some sexual references, and mentions of homophobia and racism. You're late. You run to your car and race downtown, committing a few minor traffic violations. It's 2001. President George W. Bush is in office, and the mayor of Bakersfield is Harvey Hall. As you drive down Truxton Avenue, on your left you see the Centennial Garden, where the Condors play. You also see the Convention Center, where you saw Ozzy Osbourne play back in 1995. But today you're in the mood for Bakersfield music. You're on your way to Jerry's Pizza to see a punk show. You park and race inside to pay the $5 cover. As you walk downstairs to the brick-lined basement, you hear the sound of an organ. It's not punk you hear, it's reggae. This is the sound of the Soulsteppers.
You won't believe what I've seen. You won't believe what I've seen. I saw my baby last night, holding another man.
You're listening to the San Joaquin Sound Podcast, the podcast about music in Bakersfield and the surrounding valley. I'm your host, AJ Rodriguez. For this episode, I interviewed Matt Riot. He played in bands like Death Valley Driver, The Kill, and the Soulsteppers. To start out, what was growing up in Bakersfield like for you?
I grew up as kind of just a skater kid, you know, like there wasn't a lot to do in Bakersfield. So there was skateboarding. And back then, skateboarding culture hadn't quite turned to hip hop in like Thrasher magazine or any other magazines. And it was still mainly punk rock influence. So pretty much if you were a junior higher with the skateboard, you were probably going to shows at Chaos Coffee, Bam Bam's, Empire, Romper Room, or Jerry's. And that's kind of how we all navigated. A lot of us were skaters, some of us were punk rockers, some of us became more influenced by the punk rock scene, dropped the skateboard because during those years it went from, like, if you wore Airwalks, you were a dork, or everybody thought you were gay if you had colored hair or whatever back then. So when that started getting invaded by more jockey type kids and it was okay for, like, you know, little yuppie girls to start wearing DC shoes, like, we were just like, fuck that, on to punk, you know?
Yeah, it really became mainstream at the end of the 90s
Yes,
with
it
the
did.
X Games, with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah. So it was about 94 for me when I completely stopped skating by that point. And there were a few of us, you know, Matt Levan.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was the best skater in town at the time, like, out of all of our crew. We went to Tevis together, Tevis Junior High, and me and him were some of the first ones to start smoking pot, like, that young at Tevis. And we'd go to Jerry's shows and bring the tapes that we bought and, like, listen to them and smoke pot out in the fields of Tevis. Yeah, we were big influences on each other at the time.
Do you remember any shows here in Bakersfield that you saw growing up that really influenced you?
Early on, the Fugazi show was a big one, where they came and played at Tone Theater for $5. My band played its very first show a few weeks before that, No Compliance. We played with Unwritten Law, which was, like, back then that was a big deal to play with Unwritten Law. They were a pop punk band. I was 12, I think, for our first show, and our singer jumped off the stage scared. So all of a sudden, I'm playing bass, and I'm having to sing all the songs, do all that stuff on my first show. And Tone Theater was a big theater and a big stage.
Yeah.
The only thing I really remember was after we got off stage, some other band got on. Our friend Tracy Turkey told them to get off so the next band could come on. And then some cholos came and stabbed Turkey, because this was on Baker Street, Tone Theater. It was not safe out there for punk rockers or anything.
Damn.
There was other good shows. John Bentley threw a lot of the best shows in Bakersfield during that time. There's the famous Pansy Division show. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I haven't heard of it. I know the band.
Yeah, Pansy Division, amazing band, amazing guys. Talked to them tons over the years, even after the incident. They came here and played, and they were openly gay pride band. They were playing with a band called Siren, #1 with my friend Ward Husted, and a few at Basic 4, Oliver Droppers, and some other people. And Pansy Division was on last. Now, this was before I was in the skinhead scene, and I really didn't like any of those dudes. I'll even name their names. Cameron, Chris Sawyer, who are some of my best friends still to this day now. But the Pansy Division was up on stage. There was still a lot of homophobia at the time, like where even in the traditional skinhead crews, like you didn't fuck with homophobia. I'm the one who got into the crew and then made everyone kind of drop their guards on that because they couldn't get me out of their group, and I constantly was like making them like have my balls on their head and stuff. But Pansy Division played a show. They pointed out that some of the skinheads in the crowd were very cute, and then the singer lifted up his dress, showed him his nuts and balls, and said, "I'll see you later, son," or something like that. And Cameron and Chris jumped on stage to fight them, and the drummer grabbed his cymbal stand and started just beating the fuck out of Chris, and then I started beating the fuck out of Cameron, and we got everyone out of there. And that was the last time Pansy Division ever played here. But it's one of their stories that they tell because it was an extreme example of homophobia in Bakersfield. And it sucks because none of those people today have those kind of politics. But we were all young and stupid. And the skinhead crews were there for violence. That's what later as I got into it, that was what we wanted to portray. We took ourselves very seriously, even though we were a bunch of fucking LARPers in the end. We took it so seriously. It was almost comical.
So let's talk about what is a skinhead.
It actually started in the UK, but there were a lot of Jamaicans living in the UK at the time, and they were importing the Jamaican records, the reggae records. During that time in England, the mod movement was really big, and they were into soul music, and they started getting into some of this import Jamaican music. And over time, their styles, their dress styles stayed very much the same, but they started shaving their heads to have a tougher look. And it was first called hard mods. Hard mods. They were the hard mods, the ones that wanted to fight. And then later on, it became called skinhead. Skinheads had that title as not even an anti-racist movement because there were black skinheads. But by 1976, the Young National Front movement, kind of like how, this is going to piss people off, I'm sure, kind of like how the MAGA movement picked up a lot of the young generation here, the Young National Front movement pulled kind of like a Turning Point USA and started going to the youth at punk shows that were violent and recruiting these kids, telling them, you're down and out because of the immigration. And that's when this bands like Screwdriver came out that represented themselves as skinheads, and Jerry Springers and all that stuff started spreading wider. And the original words of skinhead, it has always offended anyone who is a traditional skinhead to run into a Nazi, and there's never a fight that doesn't happen when that happens because of this long confusion. And usually Nazis don't know the difference. They don't know the history. So they'll often come up to us if they think that they're dressed like us or they see us wearing docks or whatever and say, "Hey, you fellow Nazi brother," and usually ends very bad. And that's how it always has been in Bakersfield.
I read an article about a lot of violence between in the California in 1990. It said that Jake Chavez was the president of the Sharps, which is the Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice, right?
Yeah, I'm not so sure on his presidential status on all that. A lot of that was coming down from Oregon and the boys from Oregon bringing it down here. The anti-racist action was getting
I just
brought down
meant
here.
president of locally.
Yeah, the local
is
chapter.
what it said.
I mean, it's very possible he may have taken that claim, but I know there were several guys that were very integral. And Jake was integral in that scene. He was integral in our scene, but maybe not the most beloved character in the end because of some other actions later on with the Soulsteppers.
Do you want to talk any about what a Sharp is and the
difference between that and traditional even?
Any of the kind of rivalry that was going on?
Yeah, sure. So, first off, traditional skinheads usually would not involve themselves in politics. They were not racist. Most of the time, not racist. We're not allowed to hang out with racists. There were very few people in my era. I was the only one that was carrying the Sharp flag. That was it. No one else would do it. But that didn't mean that the traditionals, if I was fighting a bunch of Nazis, wouldn't come and fight with me. That we were like blood brothers. So that it always went that way. Yeah, I mean, Oildale isn't a far shot from Jerry's Pizza or Empire. And there were guys like Diamond, Tiny, bunch of dudes. You know, there was guys like Scott Mathis that would walk. We called it fence walkers, that would hang out with the Nazis and try to be cool with us, but like would also fight with us if those guys were around. Yeah, and it just depends. Like older AJ, like he was in the penultimate time of Nazis where he was going to jail for hurting Nazis and stuff. And there were times like one of the dudes went to prison from the Sharp gang for killing a Nazi. So there was some serious stuff that went down, and it kept going until about 2003, 2004, Nazis kind of started getting wiped out and realized that coming to shows wasn't smart.
And you were in the Repugnance, right? An Oi band?
Yes. Yeah, it was an Oi band. It was me, Chris Sawyer was our manager. Cameron, a part of the Pansy Division guys, was our guitarist. We had a bassist. We had two bassists, a guy named Meathead John, and then John Stinnett later on played bass. And I was the drummer in that band.
So when you were in the Repugnance, this would have been in the mid-90s?
This would have been 99.
99?
Right. I would have been not out of high school yet. I graduated in 99, so I would have been not out of high school yet. I would have been 17 when I was in the Repugnance.
Where were you playing shows at?
Repugnance were mostly playing shows at Jerry's, I think. I don't know where the hell we played. We played several shows, but I want to say it was always at Jerry's. We were playing shows with, like I said, there was one show where we played with Vice Squad where it was the Soulsteppers, the Repugnance, and the Kill on it. So it was this major old British Oi band and then three of my bands. And they were just kind of shocked that one person was playing in three totally different style music bands. That was cool. But yeah, we played a lot of shows like that. Pistol Grip, The Generators, whose singer recently died, the singer Schleprock, Doug and the Slugs. Yeah, any Oi show that came through, we were on.
Yeah.
There was a great show. A good story for you. Vicious Rumors was a Oi band from the late 70s, and they came and played with us. That was the Generator show. And this is still when they're, like they're traditional skinheads, but there are also gangs involved. We were called the 19th Street Crew and B Street. 19th Street were mostly the punk rockers. B Street were the traditional skinheads, right? And then you had, as you went further down LA, you had the Carson City Skins. And, there were all kinds of other groups throughout there. The San Diego Knuckle Girls were like the mean, burly skinhead girls nobody wanted to mess with. But the Carson City Skinheads came up, and we had Boot Party from Fresno, which was another very violent gang. They were like Cholo Skins. And they came down, and there ended up being a knife fight with a chair fight between two of our good friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty scary because it was legit, and those two guys knew how to fight really well, and we had to get in the middle of a knife fight. One was fending one off with a chair, and one, I think it was Stan or Gramps, had the knife going. But that was definitely very memorable. But
was that outside or inside?
That was right outside Jerry's on the patio.
Wow.
And that night we all went back to Kevin Bruce's house, who was also a part of the Soulsteppers for a little bit. And we were partying there, and Vicious Rumors, they were like in their 50s and 60s. And at 5, they didn't drink, do nothing. They stayed with us at 5 a.m. They were out doing exercises on the lawn, like jumping jacks and push-ups and stuff. Still in contact with them, and the dude's still like a physical trainer and stuff. So yeah, that was memorable.
Did you have bands staying at your house a lot?
All the time, especially during the Munoz Gym days. A lot of bands crashed at my house, which wasn't necessarily a good thing for them. If I really liked them, they'd be fine, but there was a band called Light the Fuse and Run. I did not like them at all, so I took their camcorder that they brought with them, and I filmed myself when they went home. They had a nice surprise, and they ended up writing a song about how much they hate me and want to kill me, but it never happened. But yeah, we were wild. We liked pranks. We did a lot of drugs. My favorite band that would come by was Page 99, I want to say, and they became the Vita Blue, and There's a documentary called Afro Punk, and they interview Matt from the Vita Blue in there. They would always stay at my house. Fucking loved those dudes. And Matt was always the one that was never into drugs, never drinking, just this cool fucking dude. And he ended up dying of a brain aneurysm really young.
Wow.
So that was rough. That was a rough one to go through because he was close with all of us. But losing Gabe, I think, has been the hardest. Gabe Serbian from The Locust and all the other bands he's been in, played with Slayer and everything.
You were in the Soulsteppers.
The Soulsteppers had started with another drummer. And because we were both skinhead bands, we were playing shows together. And eventually Adam got out of the movement or, got out of the scene a little bit, playing, whatever. And I was the only one out of our crew who knew how to play drums, but I was playing hardcore. And they wanted me to play skinhead reggae style, which is like late 67 to 73 era reggae. And had to pick it up real fast, learn it. And yeah, that was probably the most musical band that most people like when they hear it, as opposed to my other bands. Yeah. Lots of noise and punk. People didn't identify with outside the punk or outside of the punk scene, but the Soulsteppers kind of transgress that. Originally, Adam Combs, who's no longer with us, recently passed. It was Mike Umholtz, AJ, and Graham on keyboards. Graham's still a part of the Tread Scooter Club. We still see him every scooter because we still do scooter runs and stuff like that for our crew. AJ's still part of it. I mean, we're all still close. And Jake Chavez was the manager of the Soulsteppers, which is probably a good part to bring this point in. We had records that were selling. We sold a lot of records. None of us ever saw a dime for that except Jake.
Damn.
And that's when none of us really talked to Jake ever again. He also opened a record store downtown before Ronald did, called Downtown Records, with our good friend Brian Miller, who is also a major part of our scooter scene. He started Unforgiven Scooter Club, which is our scooter club. And Brian, was the real record collector, and he had magic in that store. And Jake wanted to quickly take it over very greedily, and that caused a rift. And then me, AJ, no one ever saw a dime for any of our records ever sold. He said it all went to postage, which was ridiculous. So we lost our manager. And he was really close with the singer at the time, and me and the singer didn't get along. And I do get along with Mike as we're adults now. Like, I love Mike, and we've known each other since we were real little. Graham and AJ stopped getting along as well. So eventually it just became me and AJ in a room, in a studio, recording reel to reel and trying to cover everything and do everything. There's still a version of Rod Stewart's Maggie May out there that's really, really good that hasn't been mixed down yet. He has for the last Soulsteppers release, I think.
That's cool. Oh, and Billy was in the band too?
Billy was the lead guitarist. He's still married to Chris Sawyer's wife. Her sister's married to Billy. And we're all still, I haven't talked to Bill Bott in a long time, but me and Billy went to elementary school together.
Oh, that's cool.
So a lot of us have been lifetime friends, and even if we still don't talk, we are still, if we see each other, it's instant back to then.
We should talk about scooters. You mentioned the scooter club. Why does skinhead culture love scooters so much?
It was all based on the mod culture in the British music scene, 63. Mods all rode scooters. That was a part of their thing, put as many mirrors on it, make it as gaudy as you could. And because the mod scene and the skinhead scene were really one and the same thing, just different years leading on, different haircuts and slowly different styles, but the scooters have stayed with it all the way through it. And we still throw yearly scooter rallies, Unforgiven Scooter Club, up by Lake Isabella each year, where we go out, DJ punk rock, oi, northern soul, reggae, and hopefully try to stay standing as long as we can.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You were in an oi band before this, and you were talking about some of the fights that happened. Mm-hmm. The Soulsteppers is just more relaxing music, but were there still fights?
Yes. Still fights. There was a real well-known one. What had happened was I mentioned a guy named Scott Mathis earlier who we called a fence walker, right? He was hanging out with Nazis all the time, but he would try to be buddies with some of us, but not really. You never knew where you stood. You always knew he would probably stab you in your side if he could. And he was downstairs. I had quit the band for a few weeks because I got sick of Mike. And they got another drummer for one show. And I showed up to be supportive anyways. It was his kid, Tony. And so I was being supportive in the crowd. My friend Celso, I don't know if he lives here anymore. He was a part of our crew. And then this guy, Scott Mathis, was right there. And as they were playing their show, Scott Mathis bowed up on AJ's girlfriend at the time. And like really got in her face and then punched Celso. So I punched Scott Mathis. AJ took his Fender jazz bass while they're playing, unplugs it, smashes it on the ground, uses it like an axe and chases Scott Mathis out of Jerry's. So that bass used to hang above the very front register of Jerry's Pizza for years. Because Jerry's was like, that was fucking awesome. Jerry himself was like, that was something. Like this beautiful music and then chaos erupts. So, you know, we're all dressed nice, look nice, singing love songs, and still the same scene.
Yeah, shit still goes down.
Yeah. We took the gang shit way too seriously at the time, I think. Like, looking back, when I say we're LARPers, like, we were dressing like people from the late 60s. We were playing music like the people from the late 60s.
Yeah.
We were acting like the people from the late 60s. We were liking and dressing. You know, like, at some point you're LARPing. And you can't take yourself too seriously. And we for a long time we did. And then eventually that all kind of went. Like, you know, AJ now, you wouldn't picture him just flying, kicking someone in the head. But he's probably one of the toughest dudes I know fighting.
Yeah.
And he has that reputation because people watched it. But him now, you just probably couldn't picture him doing anything but being quiet and quietly say something under his breath.
Yeah, I've only known him in a very calm, as a really calm, chill guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to watch him do flying scissor kicks, like spin kicks. Great. That dude looked like he had done Taekwondo for 10 years and never touched it.
Yeah, you had an LP that came out one last time in 2001 with Michael on guitar and vocals.
Yeah, Mike Gumholtz.
Graham on the organ.
Yep.
Billy on lead guitar.
Yep.
AJ on bass.
Yep.
And you on drums.
Yep. And sometimes we would do things like where I'd lay lead guitar tracks on different parts. Bill did most of the lead guitar on that one, but on later EPs and different LPs, it was different people playing stuff. Because slowly people, like we kicked Mike out of the band eventually, even though he was our singer and he was a fucking amazing singer. The guy, anybody, you hear his voice and you think you're getting taken back to the 60s soul era. He's a amazing singer, amazing dude, but me and Mike did not like each other. We went to junior high together. We just never got along. We had the same kind of personalities that was fight. He was bigger, and so we just can't, it didn't work out.
Yeah. The Soulsteppers is interesting because it's almost like what I would call a time capsule band. Mm-hmm. It's a band that you listen to and they don't sound like they don't sound current. They sound like 60s, 70s reggae. Yeah. I think. I'm not an expert, but
we actually went and got Buck Owens' 8-track recorder, which was about 7 or 8 feet tall. It's a big, huge machine, reel to reel. And we were using an Echoplex and all kinds of other stuff to keep the sound so traditional that no one could identify it differently from a 60s album. And that was our whole goal with that.
And I've tried to look up the Soulsteppers in a bunch of zine archives, and I found references to the Soulsteppers all over the world.
Yeah.
In Europe, people really loved your sound.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah.
And just references in South America to the Soulsteppers on any zine that was a reggae zine was talking about this record because it was so unique and sounded so authentic.
Yeah. It was a cool time, and it felt like we had a lot of upward trajectory. There was another band out during that same time called the Rhythm Doctors. Later on, I think some of those people became Agrolites, and now one of the guys from here is in the Agrolites. That played in a later iteration of kind of the Soulsteppers. They became called Capsules. Great drummer.
Oh, cool. Were there like full reggae shows, or were you playing on split bills with other genres?
We were playing on split bills a lot with other genres, usually like the big oi bands that would come through. We'd play with them, like Vice Squad, The Business. There's just the two off the top of my head. But we would also play with bands like, The Insiders, which were a soul band from NorCal. We did play with the Rhythm Doctors down at the Whiskey A Go-Go. We had Santa Monica Pier show with, I can't remember that band, but they ended up getting big. But yeah.
You ever have shows with Mentaburu?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever had shows with Mento Brew, but they were all close friends of ours. Cesario from Mento Brew taught me how to play drums when I was in junior high.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he would go to our high school or junior high. We'd sit there, smoke cigarettes, and fucking teach me drums. And he was a major influence on me in many ways with that. But our biggest show, I'd say, was with Dave Wakeling from the English Beat and Ika Mouse at a reggae fest.
Awesome.
But the problem was they left a keg backstage for us to drink. And so by the time we were playing, I don't really remember playing much. And someone was passing around a bottle of 151, and we were all taking shots of that. So there's a lot of stuff I don't remember too well, but we pulled it off somehow.
So what about the other bands that you were playing in? Did you ever play in Death Valley Driver?
I did. I was one of the longer members of it. Originally, I'm trying to remember, it was Bo.
Could you say that one more time?
Yeah.
Because you moved it.
Yeah.
Over.
Yeah. The early, before me, it was Bo Mingus, Adam Harold, and then Drew and Ronald. And Adam and Drew were professional wrestlers at the time. And I was already doing stuff with them under Prolapse Nation, which quickly became The Kill when Bo moved out. And since we are already all playing there, and we were already all playing the same shows, it was like, well, I might as well just stay on drums and just do blast beats and, stuff like that, and let the guys who wrestle, like, hurt themselves. And I was the referee, so I'd always wear, like, a referee jersey with other things on it, with other symbols. So Death Valley Driver only became a thing because we had extra time. Drew, the singer of The Kill, was also a pro wrestler and doing real pro wrestling shows, as was Adam Harold, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, down at the Dome.
Yeah, down at the Dome. They were doing legitimate pro wrestling. And they wanted to do extreme wrestling. And Drew is really all about bleeding and blading. And if you're not familiar with wrestling, blading means hiding a razor blade somewhere and cutting your forehead up when no one's looking. And all of a sudden, your head will bleed a lot, especially if there's sweat. You will just be covered in blood. And every show, he would do that. You would get naked, and it was chaos. And it was in a boxing ring, and sometimes he'd fly out of the ring and hit people and come back in the ring, everybody covered in blood. Yeah, I don't even know why or how. I'd never heard of a band doing that before. I know bands do that now. There are other bands that have done it since and have gotten big for it, but I wish people would release the video of that stuff. I know Adam has some of the video, and he put it up on Instagram not even that long ago, but he cut out the fight scenes. He's like, this will just be memories for us who were there, and that's it. So I'm not going to put these up. And I wish you would, because I don't remember some of them. I do remember having a lot of fear. Even with all the drugs I was on, I remember being really scared for Adam a few times, and Drew, because some of those hits were not okay that they took. 10 feet in the air being power bombed onto concrete. That's nuts. But
wow,
they were. Drew specifically was impervious to pain. Adam was just very tough.
What were the songs about? It's hard to tell with that type of music what the lyrics are, right?
No lyrics.
No lyrics?
Anything to do with Drew had no lyrics, I don't believe. Well, there were we had songs like Ric Flair 14 times, where we'd yell, holy shit, 14 times. All the songs were supposed to be about wrestling, but what Drew actually sang, nobody's ever seen any lyric books or anything.
Yeah.
In The Kill, it's why, trying to come up with I think me and Ronald named the songs, but we never knew the lyrics to any of the songs, so I don't know if the lyrics aligned with any of the names, and they never really got kept because we didn't really release much,
Yeah.
We had no interest in recording. Everything for us was get it on video, because that's where the fun shit's gonna be.
Yeah, I've seen a live tape of Death Valley Driver but that's it. I've never seen any albums. I think there's some Kill albums.
Oh yeah,
or
there's some Kill albums out there.
EPs, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were on a compilation Jello Biafra put out called "Dropping Food on Their Heads Is Not Enough," and a compilation for the women of Afghanistan. We did that compilation with Jello Biafra.
That's cool.
And that's the only thing that we released professionally, and I thought it sounded like shit because whoever recorded it so clean that it just didn't sound right because our stuff was supposed to be very lo-fi.
Death Valley Driver was a wrestling band. It's named after a wrestling move.
Yes.
And there would be live wrestling at the same time as the music, and almost, against the music, stopping someone playing or something like that.
It built up into as the music was kind of on our last songs, they started hitting each other. And then it would just lead on. And dude, the things that they were doing, it was no joke. They were really fucking hurting each other. There was blood on the rafters everywhere, dropping on people's faces. Some of the things they did were really dangerous. And I can't express how, when we say wrestling, we're not just talking small moves. They were going outside of the gym, power bombing each other through each other's truck windows, and really, really hurting each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I'll play the drums, bro. But yeah.
When I talked to Adam, he told me he has serious injuries that still
guaranteed,
affect him today from doing these wrestling shows.
Yes.
And Drew had told me that people in the audience thought they were fighting and sometimes tried to stop and stuff like that.
So there's a specific show he's talking about. And I brought my friend Esteban and his brother Jose, and they were East Side guys, kind of like a greaser. One was a greaser, and one was kind of just like a kickback cholo. And I brought them with me, but I didn't know they ate a bunch of acid before they came in. I didn't tell them what Death Valley Driver was. So they saw my band playing, and then they saw our bassist hit our singer. And all of a sudden, Jose was like, "Oh my God, you're going to kill him, man." So he started just swinging on Adam and just really hard, and he could fight really well. So we all had to I had to be like, "Guys, no, don't hit either of each other," because they were all my good friends. And that turned into a big mess. A lot of people got beat up over it because they didn't understand what was going on.
And Drew's still a wrestler. He still does.
Yeah, that blows my mind. He is so old now, to go do these death matches like he's doing. Yeah. It genuinely worries me, and I've told him that, but he's always been like that. He is impervious to pain. He always has been.
And you played the Munoz Gym, right?
Yes.
A lot.
Yes.
With all these bands.
The earliest shows were, Ronald was running them. Me and Drew were terrorizing and playing shows. The Kill was very, very beginning of that. Prolapse was the beginning of that. The Prolapse Nation was a really weird kind of move over because it was Bo on guitar, Melvin on bass, who is no longer, it's still one of our best friends, but he got into religion and just totally phased everyone out. He was on bass, and Drew was singing, Ronald was playing drums, and we were going to bring me in to play synths. And at some point, Bo started doing other stuff, more serious stuff on his own side. So I just carried it on, and the Prolapse Nation became called The Kill.
What were live shows like with The Kill? There was no wrestling at those?
There was no wrestling at those, but usually what would happen would be Drew would be at the front, and he was very aggressive. Whether some of our worst shows were in Fresno, when we toured with Total Chaos, we went to Fresno with them. And we left with everyone wanting to fight us because Drew would take the microphones, no matter whose microphones they were. He would bash them on his head. He would break everyone's microphones. He would leave them in shatters. So sound guys wanted to kill us. When he was doing this stuff, he would punch people in the face in the audience and smash the microphone over their head. And so they'd want to fight him. And I was behind the keyboard, so I was closest to him. Melvin didn't fight, so Melvin didn't want anything to do with that stuff. And Ronald was down for anything. So if Ronald would watch Drew would do his thing. If I got involved, Ronald would immediately launch his drumsticks, jump over the drum set, and it would just be a fight, and that would be the end of the show. And that was usually how most shows ended for The Kill, unless it was at the boxing gym. We didn't do a lot of fighting at the boxing gym.
Ironically.
Ironically, it was our place. What do we?
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
shit where you eat.
No, I just think it's funny because it's the boxing arena. So
Yeah. And
it's almost like performance art.
it was dangerous performance art, and we got hurt a lot. Like none. And in saying this, like I'm fucking 5'4.5". Drew's not much taller than me. Ronald's tall, but he's kind of lanky. Like we weren't like extreme fighters or intimidating by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't want to kind of come off like we were tough.
Yeah.
We were just stupid, and we knew that it would make a great show and great footage. And we all knew we'd eventually heal up as long as we didn't get stabbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Death Valley Driver and The Kill sounds like we need to get more footage out there, huh?
Yeah, it needs to come out. I know Ronald's sitting on all the videos. A guy named Matt Mickey filmed almost every Death Valley Driver show and every Kill show, and he had a very special camera with special chips in it that made it look like professional filming.
Yeah, shout out Matt Mickey from Intuition Skate Shop.
Yeah, I love Matt.
He put some Death Valley Driver footage in one of the Intuition Skate videos.
Yes, he did.
Like intercut with the
Yeah.
people falling downstairs on skates.
Probably the best version of Death Valley Driver would be with Stephen Kuntz on drums, because he could actually play drums from Loser Life. And he's gone on to do big stuff.
Played in that band.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool.
I remember Stephen growing up. He was a little boy, and I forgot his first band. I forgot what they were called. But I remember bringing him over to my house to teach him how to fight, because he was younger, and he knew that, you know, like all this was going on, what he was entering into. And so we were teaching him to fight, and that guy became a monster when it came to fighting. Like,
He has his own
monster.
gym now.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out Kuntz. He broke my back. I used to pick on him when I was little, and I thought I was going to wrestle him like after I got fat and older. And I went to throw him in a triangle choke, and he just picked me up like I was nothing and slammed my back on the ground and broke my back.
Ouch.
Yeah, but it was out of love.
Yeah. Not on purpose.
No, I mean, he tried to hurt me, but I was
Yeah.
trying to hurt him. But
Yeah.
we were friends, so
All fair. All is fair.
it's what happens. Yeah. Yeah. So with the Kill, we would generally speaking, we would play with the lights out in the gym, and there'd be like a stomp box that I had that would, whenever I stomped on it, it would trigger a strobe light. So everything would go crazy during the breakdowns, and you could see people finally moving. But other than that, there was a gentle lantern over my keyboard so I could see what I was playing, but it was all in the dark for every show. Drew was almost naked for every show. So there was always memorable moments. There was playing at Coos Cafe. I can't remember who we were playing with, but it was pretty big bands. We got banned from Coos Cafe for Drew getting naked, chasing people, and then fist fighting. And then someone tried to hit us with a car. So we were banned from Coos and Shea Cafe down in San Diego because the same guys were running it. All the Locust shows were amazing because we were all so tight with each other. And yeah, all those bands, the 31G bands, the GSL bands, that was my favorite times.
And you were working for 31G for a while, right?
Yeah, I was doing 31G's website. I was doing GSL's website. So I was doing the main record label that Locust was on was GSL, but the owner of 31G was the main guy in the Locust. So somehow I just started doing those. I did the Blood Brothers for a bit. I did cattle decapitations early on too. And yeah, Justin just wired me into everything. And by doing that, he also wired us into shows we probably should never have been on because we were just crazy noise. But he enjoyed the punk rock aspect of it, like the stage show.
Yeah.
So, yeah. My most memorable show was with The Locust, Bratmobile, LaShock, and we played first, and Drew bloodied himself up so much. There was blood all over the rafters on top because he was swinging from them. And so blood from his head got up there. And when the Locust set up to play, Gabe, who is no longer with us and one of my really good friends, he was the drummer of the Locust at the time. He wasn't playing guitar at the time. He was the drummer. He set up, and as they were playing, blood was dropping down on his face. And all of a sudden, he realized what was going on and started puking while he was playing. And that was just like one of the most punk rock things, I've ever seen in my life. And it was so gross to watch someone else's blood hit his face, and he didn't care, but he was like, you know?
Yeah.
We got to see a lot of the really cool shit just by being in that sphere of the 31G group. And I don't want to leave that understated. Like, Charles Bronson. Mark from Charles Bronson was a big influence on us and helped us. Justin Pearson, Gabe, all those guys, Travis from Cattle Decapitation, all those guys were a big part of why our band was known outside of Bakersfield. They were a big reason that the gym became known, because once they were talking about it, like, Jerome Stream wants to come out here, like all the bands wanted to come out here, Owls, everybody wanted to play that show, that gym, because it was crazy. Playing in the middle of a boxing gym is kind of weird.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I miss that place. I miss that place a lot. It hurt. It hurt to watch it go. I don't know if Ronald went into the details of what happened at the end.
No.
With people kicking in Grandpa's door when he wasn't around and robbing him.
Man.
And the boxers there weren't keeping the place up for the man who had built it for them. And they weren't helping protect him when they were there. And at that point, Ronald had to make the decision, this can't keep going on to Grandpa. And we loved Grandpa. Grandpa was a grandpa to all of us. And he'd take the time to show you how to throw a jab, a right hook. Yeah. But it was a sad loss. It was a really sad loss to lose that, because it was a landmark in Bakersfield, and maybe that's why people remember it so fondly, because it never had a time to take a dip. Nobody that ran it became bad people,
Yeah.
And fuck Jerry's.
So another band you were in was Black Jerks.
The
and that
Black
was with
Jerks.
Clayton.
Yes.
And he was a singer.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark and Ron and you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And Drew stood there with the unplugged bass, which he didn't notice till later. But yeah, so that started because Melvin, he started kind of like being prissy about when he wanted to play shows for The Kill, and we started having to cancel shows because he's like, I don't feel like playing today. I'm going to go do this. We're like, okay, well, we're not going to use you then. And me and Ron had kind of kicked around an idea of making a funny fake emo band, Midwest style, Get Up Kid style emo band, just for the shits and giggles.
Yeah.
And then I started playing some more stuff like Teen Generate, early 77 punk style. There were a lot of influences on what I was writing on guitar. And we were like, okay, let's jam on this. And the first, it was just me, Clayton, and Ron. And we were rocking pretty hard, and it was going good. But Mark Velo came in, and he made it sound like he could actually play a guitar really well lead, which I don't. I can play fine, rhythm, but he killed it. And once Mark joined the band, that sound became amplified. And it was really unfortunate we didn't record a lot of the best stuff, because that's a band that most people would turn out to see as a punk band and really like the music. And we had a few reunion shows later on, but it was never quite the same because of the drugs. The drugs took everyone out.
Is there any memorable shows with them?
With the Jerks? So most people wouldn't put our name on flyers first, because they didn't understand it, and it just made it sound like it was racist. But our singer was Clayton, who most people don't know is black, and he would sing Black Power lyrics about how all black men have much bigger dicks and how he hates Klansmen and stuff. And we were a Black Power band. But he was also kind of a jerk, so it became called the Black Jerks, but most people wouldn't put it on the bill as that unless it was us putting us on the bill at the gym. Most people would put like Circus de Negros or something, like Circus de Negros, or they'd put it in another language because they didn't want people seeing that for whatever reason. But, it was a different political time, and we were always trying to push boundaries.
Yeah.
As much as we could here.
Now, this thing I don't know what I'm asking, but what about the Haberfield building concert?
So there was something weird that happened before where we got banned from Jerry's Pizza completely. And this is when Ron had the record store inside something called the Haberfield building in Bakersfield.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, it's a very small, echoey, horrible building to play a show in. It is so echoey. It's all tile. And I don't remember why, but there was an Anti-Nate show we played. And it was filled. It was packed. I remember Nick Bellardes, who wrote a book called Lords of Bakersfield, great book about the corruption in Bakersfield, district attorney on down. And he was covering the show. And he did a great write-up on it about how, like, there were people sieg heiling about, like, Nate Berg, who was running Jerry's Pizza. And he's a controversial figure. He's no longer with us. Some people love Nate. Some people were friends with Nate for a while. Some people, like I, really knew Nate and we were good friends for a long time and knew some of his more scary things about him that if people knew, they would not be asking for a star on outside the Fox Theater. But it was mostly as a pushback to Jerry's, because we kept getting kicked out and banned everywhere because we would fight every show. Whether it was the Gate, which was the Christian place, we got in a fight with some Oil Dell guys there. I don't know. It was fun, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, kept it interesting.
So after the Jerks, then what did you do?
After the Jerks, I ended up moving down to San Diego to play with some bands down in San Diego. But I was also moving from Bakersfield to get off heroin and to get out of that because it swallowed our whole scene during that time. Lots of people died. Some of us were probably more integral to bringing that into the scene, because when I got into the scene, it wasn't heavy in the scene. But when I got on it, a lot of people got on it, and I had to break away. So I moved down to San Diego, was going to do stuff with the Locust guys, and they had just gotten back from another tour when all their equipment got robbed, and they were just all depressed, all done. And so I just worked on my normal day job down there, working for Sony, doing web programming, helping support stuff, and then started doing my current business, which is cannabis seed stuff. And I stopped music from that point on out.
You still ever play?
I mean, in my room sometimes, like we've talked about it, you know, a few times. But I'm old. I don't want to go play shows. I have no interest in playing shows. I don't play as well as I used to. So the creativity's kind of gone. Once I got off opiates, that part of my brain shut down quite a bit, the creativity for music. And it just never happened again. I still DJ sometimes. You know, I got shitloads of records out there. Still have the turntables, DJ scooter rallies and stuff. But as far as playing music, maybe one day, but definitely not playing live. I'm too old for that shit.
Do you have any other creative outlets that you do now?
I mean, I have my own show, my own podcast, Cannabis History. Yeah, that's about it, dude. Like, all my creativity goes into, like you're doing deep dive research into something that you're super passionate about, you want to learn about.
Yeah.
I got into that with cannabis because I learned that cannabis had a big punk rock culture in the 70s. And most people know is the deadhead culture with cannabis. And I wanted to bring that out to the forefront because it really wasn't welcome in the when I first got in the cannabis industry, people hated me. They're like, who's this loudmouth telling us we might be wrong about something? You know, like peace, love, and vibes, bro. Get out of here. So I took all of that creativity that I had for like the Black Jerks, doing things that push the boundaries, and took that and put it into the cannabis world. And I'm still probably the most hated person in cannabis today, which I'm good with for that reason. It wasn't a good thing to have people push back and write history correct. So yeah, that's where my creativity went. But yeah, there's still, like I said, there's 25 electric guitars around the house, so I always have something to pick up and play.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to talk about that we didn't get to?
I think the only other thing I'd talk about was the major thing that really tore down the scene for a good long while was drugs, for sure. For sure. It impacted a lot of people, and we needed guys like Ron and Mark that weren't into that to carry on with the Contaminators and other bands. It's crazy to watch. Ron grew up poor like me. We were poor kids. He grew as a poor kid on the east side. His grandpa ran the Munoz Boxing Gym that was an actual boxing gym. And to watch him build up his company to own part of Bakersfield, like, that's magic to me, you know? So there were people that have made good throughout all the hardships that a lot of people in Bakersfield went through and pulled through and have a successful career.
One thing I ask at the end of every episode is like, what are some current Bakersfield bands that you want to shout out? But do you know any? Sometimes people don't know any.
I don't know a single one anymore. I haven't been to shows in
Is
so
there any
long.
bands that never got their fair shake that you want people to look up and listen to from Bakersfield?
Oh my God. Yeah, there what's his name? Joey Wood. Joey Wood, he would play a lot of the shows with us. He was an acoustic guy, a lot of Bright Eye style stuff. I did a side project with him and a lady named Lindsay Fair, where it was really low-key, Bright Eye style stuff. And we played a few shows like that. He was awesome. He had a beautiful voice. There were other bands that played with us at the gym, though, that weren't necessarily even from Bakersfield, like Beautiful Skin. They didn't get well known. They were on GSL. Early 80s sounding stuff that was amazing. I remember when they played here, everybody walked out except for me. And that was very memorable. It was cool being known as the band. Like when Molly Newman from Bratmobile hit me up to play with us, she's like, I hear you guys are like the Germs. Like that was probably the biggest compliment I ever had, was because back then, as history goes, like you go to Germ shows, you didn't know if you were getting cut, you didn't know if you were getting hit, you didn't know what was going to happen. If something bad was probably going to happen on stage. And having someone that I looked up to, because Bratmobile, I was a massive fan of Bratmobile since I was young. And she was the booking manager for the Locust for a bit, which is how we even linked up. Yeah. So getting told we were, that kind of image and that was our reputation, but like before she had ever seen us even, was that was one of the high points of my career, I'd say. I just recently did an interview with Damian Abraham from Fucked Up. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He has a podcast.
Turned Out a Punk? Yeah,
Turned Out a Punk. I'm the cannabis episode on there. And I got to help him work on one of the music videos and the background history on stuff. So I'm still doing little tiny things in music, but nothing like playing instruments and stuff. And I'm happy to even have friends like that still around.
This has been episode 13 of the San Joaquin Sound Podcast. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for the next one.
Oh, so you're gonna go. But one thing I want to know, is it all because of him?